So Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was here last week. He spent 4 days in Washington. He was given the highest honor accorded to a foreign visitor. He was a state guest, which is a rare honor for visitors. You know, there are 3 categories of U.S. visitors to foreign visitors to Washington. One is a private visit when a foreign head of state or head of government requests the U.S. president to visit Washington and see him, and that is seen as an official, as a private visit arranged on the request of a foreign dignitary. Then comes the official visit when the U.S. government invites somebody. And then the third category is that of a state visit. State visit is something which is like given to only a few visitors during a president's four-year tenure. So far, I think the French president was the one who got a state visit from the Biden administration, and Mr. Modi was the second. He was also invited to address the US Congress, which is also a rare honor. But while this was happening at the official level, like set up streets around Washington with decorated flags, and there were Indians holding little Indian and American flags, chanting slogans, and all those things that were happening in and around the White House. There were people who did notice that Mr. Modi was not quite a democratic leader that the Biden administration was trying to present him as. There was sort of, as you referred to, there was one full-page ad in the Washington Post which highlighted his efforts to muzzle the press in India, how he had arrested, harassed, and even kicked out of India those journalists who criticized him or his government, how the BBC was treated, how its offices were raided when it did a documentary about Mr. Modi's involvement in the Gujarat massacre in 2002. But more important, the content of this ad was important, but more important than the content was the group that got together to put this ad. And the groups included almost all major advocacy organizations of the media, like Reporters Without Borders, like the Committee to Protect Journalists, IPI, and others. And besides that, there was also a news conference arranged at the National Press Club in Washington, where liberal Indian journalists spoke, and they told the audience, which included prominent American journalists, how Mr. Modi was treating the media there, how he was he had created life very difficult for journalists, for those journalists who criticize his government. And besides the press conference, there was also the 2 other human rights groups, Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, along with some US lawmakers, arranged the screening of the BBC documentary on Gujarat on the day Mr. Modi arrived, or a day after that. And then there was another gathering of liberal Indian and Indian Muslims on the day he was speaking. He was addressing the Congress, and there were I'm just focusing on, there were others too, but I'm focusing on Indians because that shows that Mr. Modi is not an undisputed leader of the Indian masses, although he enjoys the support of the majority, but there are many powerful voices within India and in the Indian American community here in the United States who are against it. So there was this another group that, not one group, but actually several groups, held protests outside the White House, near other places near the White House. Like a big demonstration was held at the Black Lives Matter Plaza, which is only at a little distance from the White House, and that has become almost a symbol of a struggle for civil liberties and human rights. The were also seminars and discussions arranged by various groups. Then there were Muslim advocacy groups who spoke about it. There were meetings and rallies held not only in Washington but in New York, in Chicago, in Los Angeles, and that highlighted Mr. Modi's negative record on human rights, free press, and how he, a particular stress was on his treatment of religious minorities, how life was made difficult for Muslims, for Christians, and other religious minorities, ethnic minorities as well. There were people from Eastern Indian states who participated in these discussions and demonstrations. And so there were people from Manipur, from Assam and other places. So it all goes on to show that the Biden administration obviously succeeded in building a strong relationship with India. It got what it wanted, basically agreements to supply India with weapons, to allow India to make weapons like F-16 jet engines of F-14 jet fighters inside India. Also, they did commercial deals worth billions of dollars. They talk about India's decision to buy more than 200 passenger planes from the United States. All those things were happening, but at the same time, there were people who continued to remind Mr. Biden that in his eagerness to quote India, in his keenness to find counterweight to China's growing influence around the world, and particularly in Asia, it is encouraging and emboldening a person who is anything but a Democrat, who targets religious minorities, who targets Indian liberals, and who targets civil rights activists, human rights groups, human rights organizations, all those things. And so I would say overall, the US media and US human rights activists and other organizations did a pretty decent job of showing the other side of the picture.